Hey everyone, here we are on lesson 3.8, exploring ideologies. And what we're going to do is introduce the concept of ideology to our unit on sustainable energy. And as you can see here in the write up for today, it says ideologies are a way of thinking that relate to social, political, economic, and other aspects of modern life. Now, what we want to do is it says we want to explore what effect ideologies have on the choice to support or oppose using sustainable forms of energy in various states. So, we're going to focus in on two common ideologies that you probably have heard of: conservatism and liberalism. So, just looking at this chart here, it says conservatism is a governmental system where the existing institutions are maintained, emphasizing free enterprise and minimal governmental intervention. All right, so they want to conserve the way things are. They want the government to not be imposing things on all people. On the other side of that, liberalism says representative government, free speech, abolition of class privilege, and state protection of the individual. So, by having government represent all people and protect everyone in that way, they advocate for the government setting up certain systems and things to benefit everyone equally. All right, so we've got conservatism, minimal government intervention, and liberalism, government representing everyone equally. So, with these ideas, what we want to do now is we want to be able to read an article about the state we're choosing for sustainable energy and determine whether that article has a conservative slant to it or a liberal slant to it in terms of how it relates to sustainable energy. So, I have two examples for you here. I'm going to read the first one. This is a Star Tribune article from the first week of February in 2019. It's titled Bitter Cold Shows Reliable Energy Sources Are Critical. And it doesn't say it right up here at the top, but at the bottom it mentions that the author is named Isaac Orr, who's a policy fellow at the Center for the American Experiment. So I'm going to read this and I'm going to highlight as I go and kind of talk through what I see in terms of either conservative or liberal slant. It says, this week's bitter cold had the potential to be deadly. Again, this was 2019. But thanks to reliable forms of energy like coal, natural gas, and nuclear power, it wasn't. Lawmakers considering doubling Minnesota's renewable energy mandate to 50% by 2030 should use this week's weather as a moment to reconsider their plans to lean so heavily on wind and solar. So, already here, I hear the author talking about lawmakers mandating or requiring the government to do something, right? So, this here provides me with a clue about um, the conservative or liberal slant on this article. On Wednesday, when the morning temperature in the Twin Cities was negative 24 degrees, wind energy provided just 4% of the electricity and utilized just 24% of its installed capacity in a region monitored by the Mid-Continent Independent Systems Operator, or MISO, a not-for-profit organization that ensures reliable, least-cost delivery of electricity across all or parts of 15 states, including Minnesota. So, specifically targeting in here on wind energy and a low percentage of its uh, output and capacity. Meanwhile, coal-fired power plants provided 45% of MISO's power, and nuclear power provided 13%. Most of this from Minnesota's Prairie Island and Monticello nuclear power plants, which should be kept open, by the way, says the author. Natural gas provided 26% of our electricity use at that time, and the remainder was imported from Canada and other US states. All right, so you can see here, again, author is definitely targeting or advocating for forms of energy that are less sustainable or not sustainable. All right, natural gas also heated the homes of approximately 66% of Minnesotans this week, by far the most for any home heating fuel. But there wasn't enough gas to combat the frigid temperatures. So here, all of a sudden, he switches talking about natural gas and heating, right? Home heating fuel rather than electricity. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. It goes on to say, Because of the extreme cold, Xcel Energy urged its natural gas customers in Becker, Big Lake, Chisago City, Lindstrom, Princeton, and Isani to reduce the settings on their thermostat, first down to 60 degrees, then to 63 through Thursday morning to conserve enough natural gas to prevent a widespread shortage as temperatures remain below 14 below zero. Some Xcel customers in the Princeton area lost gas service, and Xcel reserved rooms for them in nearby hotels. Enacting a 50% renewable energy mandate will not replace coal-fired power plants with wind and solar. It will replace coal-fired power plants with wind and solar and natural gas. Enough natural gas plants to potentially generate up to 100% of our electricity needs in the very possible eventuality that wind or solar are generating zero electricity at a given moment. Or, on a day like Wednesday, 96% of electricity might have to be generated by natural gas, with wind contributing 4%. Okay, here again, he's talking about that legislative mandate from the government and hinting here at which forms he believes were most effective. This week's urgent notice from Xcel to conserve natural gas shows that there is a real danger in putting all of our eggs into the renewables plus natural gas basket. At minimum, pursuing a grid powered entirely by solar, wind, and natural gas would require more natural gas pipeline capacity, which is likely to be opposed by the factions that are currently challenging the replacement of the Line 3 pipeline. Lest I be accused of unfairness, it's true that any number of unforeseen circumstances could prevent a coal, nuclear, or natural gas plant from being able to run during a cold snap like this. But the key word is unforeseen. The intermittency of wind and solar is a feature, not a bug, which is why Minnesota lawmakers should reconsider the wisdom of enacting a mandate requiring 50% of our electricity to come from intermittent renewable resources. So here's talking about the fossil fuel forms being a little bit more reliable in his view, and he's calling solar and wind intermittent, meaning they don't operate when it's not windy and they don't operate when it's not sunny. All right, if Minnesota lawmakers are sincere in their belief that we must reduce carbon dioxide emissions as soon as possible, they must lift Minnesota's ban on new nuclear power plants, which has been in place since 1994. Not only would nuclear power plants be essentially guaranteed to run in minus 24-degree weather, but a forthcoming study by American Experiment has found that new nuclear power plants could not only achieve a lower emissions rate by 2030, but also save Minnesota $22.3 billion through 2050. So now he's taking the conservative economic stance here as well. Minnesota can show true leadership and provide reliable, affordable, and safe electricity by legalizing new nuclear power, not by doubling Minnesota's reliance on intermittent renewable power and natural gas. All right, so it was fairly clear throughout the article. He was advocating for the way that things are, conserving the way they are, right? Coal, natural gas, and nuclear, and advocating against things like wind and solar, right? Which would kind of equalize the playing field and access to those if the government enacted their 50% mandate to all people, right? Not just those who could afford it or had it. So this article shows a pretty conservative slant here, or conservative opinion in terms of renewable versus non-renewable sources of energy.